Now we know that the Imam has special knowledge,
Yeah.
and we can assume over here that he may have known he is going to get martyred in the process. Why did he still go?
The first ziyarah of Imam Riza alayhi salam. In that one, you call all the Imams are known as Qaim. So we might have this thing in our mind that only the 12th Imam, he is only the Qaim. But if you look in that particular one, the first ziyarah of Imam Rida alayhi salam, all the Imams, we address them as Qaim.
He was the most submissive to Allah in this test, to the extent that on his last breath, his face shone so bright that those who came to kill him could not do it because they were mesmerized by his bright face.
The more higher you are to God, the more closer you are to God, Allah will test you accordingly to see your level of submission.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. In this series of podcasts that we have prepared for the month of Muharram, I have with me our guest, Sheikh Zafar, who would be discussing the whole uprising of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. We've covered two of them in our previous episode, where the Imam found the need for someone to create a change within society for two reasons. We discussed two of the reasons. That the people chose ijtihad, and by ijtihad we mean personal opinion over what was revealed in Islam. So they chose the personal opinion over the ahkam and the rulings and the aqaid of Islam that Islam had with the Prophet brought. And the second reason was that there was a prohibition of narrations that started from the time of the first caliph, and it created a vacuum in society which allowed a lot of people with personal aims to distort religion. And with distortion of religion, obviously without the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt, without the ahadith of the Prophet to whom the Quran was revealed, without these as an essential part of religion, people were able to input their own personal opinions in the form of narrations, which created a massive amount of corruption. And Islam was no longer the Islam that was revealed to the Prophet. It had reached its pinnacle of corruption at the time of Yazid. But apart from that, we have a few more reasons for the Qiyam. So obviously, the Qiyam of the Imam was not a one side. It was not based on only one. It was not based on only one reason. There were several reasons which all got together, which required someone to bring about a change within the society. And who better than the grandson of the Prophet himself? And let's continue with the reasons. So for the next one, let's discuss this. Was the uprising of the Imam a special responsibility only for the Imam, or could anyone have done it?
Okay, so yeah, there is a bit of a theological discussion.
Yes.
In which the result of that has a fiqh implication as well. And what I want to say is that because of the position of the Prophet of the Imam, there might be certain rules that are exclusive to the Prophet or the Imam.
Like Salatul Layl.
Yes.
That we have.
Yes.
Salatul Layl for the people is mustahab.
Yes.
But for the Prophet it was wajib.
Yeah, he has to pray it. It's obligatory on him to pray Salatul Layl. Right now, so what again from this Maktalul Jame, they are saying what these scholars are saying is that the issue of Qiyam was a duty that was exclusive to the Wali of God. In this case, Imam Husayn. It was his job to do it, not anyone else's job. So he is the one who has the authority from Allah to rise. And I remember that if we look in Mafatihul Jinan, there is in the section of ziyarat, when you have the one on the first ziyarah of Imam Riza alayhi salam, in that one you call all the Imams are known as Qaim. So we might have this thing in our mind that only the 12th Imam, he is only the Qaim. But if you look in that particular one, the first ziyarah of Imam Rida alayhi salam, all the Imams, we address them as Qaim. So they are the ones who qaim, bideen Allah, and obviously this qiyam uprising might take a different shape and form.
So every Imam has a responsibility
Yeah.
which he has to fulfill towards the society he has been appointed to.
Yeah. So this qiyam can be. Now, obviously, we have to remember that the Prophet and the Imams are the greatest blessing, the greatest bounty from Allah. So picking up the sword is the last option. They are not out for bloodshed. They will always tell us nicely.
This just I want to put in here something that you said the Imam is not here for bloodshed.
Yeah.
When Imam Husayn on his last breaths in Karbala,
Yeah.
so Shimar is going to sit on his chest.
Yeah.
According to some famous accounts. Some accounts say it was someone else, but according to most famous ones, it was Shimar.
Yeah.
The Imam tells him, "Look, you've done everything. I'm going to die anyways.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, don't kill me.
Don't kill me.
I will do shafa'ah for you."
Yeah.
Because the Imam's only aim is to guide everyone, even if you are his killer.
Yeah.
So this mercy that is encompassed within the Imam
Yeah.
is there. It is very vast. It's there to guide everyone. And like you say, he's not out there for bloodshed. There would be very specific reasons he would have to uprise. And even with Imam Husayn, it was more of a defensive rather than offensive. We need to make that clear. It was very defensive. He was cornered and then he had to pick up the sword. It's not like he went out with the sword and started from the front. And so yes, please go on.
So even, for example, in the Battle of Jamal, right, Imam Ali did not directly go and fight Aisha. Obviously he tried to do a sulh, he tried to, calm things down. But, if you go up against the Imam and, you're closing all the doors to receiving the mercy of Allah, then
nothing can save you.
Then you don't, and you still want to continue creating havoc and fasad in society, corruption, then you leave the Imam no choice but to, unsheath the sword, as they say.
But that was only the time of Imam Ali.
No, this applies to any Imam.
Okay.
Because it is their duty. They can do it intellectually. They can advise people. Like it says, Udu ila sabili rabbik bil hikmati wal mawizatil hasana. Right? So wisdom, you can give somebody emotional advice, right? But then, and this is what the Quran says, right? They invite you to the path, and they are the du'atil Allah. They are the greatest. Others can do tabligh of the religion, but the greatest ones who invite to the path of God are the Imams. So obviously they will take these ways that are appropriate to the one they're addressing, but the last option, they might have to lift up the sword. So again, this is something we have to understand, that qiyam does not necessarily mean bloodshed and violence. No, that is the last option. If you don't leave any option and the religion is going to go away, then yes, the Imams will, lift the sword, but that doesn't apply today, basically. And when the 12th Imam comes back, then that is between his divine wisdom and what God tells him. But it's not. Those who want to look at this discussion can look in the books of Fiqh, where you have the discussion of jihad and offensive, defensive war, and the scholars make it very clear. So it's not something that's very confusing. But anyways, let's move on. Right, keep the focus on Imam Husayn. So here another scholar, he's quoting Sahib Jawahir, who's a big scholar in fiqh, and he's saying that, look, the movement of Imam Husayn is one of the secrets of God, right? So the Imam, being connected to God, he gets the knowledge from there. His exact reason, and obviously we might look at this on the knowledge of the Imam. This is one of the secrets of God. We might not understand that why does the Imam go do something? He takes his children, his family, and why is he exactly doing this? Sometimes you don't understand, right? So he's saying this is one of the secrets. The next thing, right, and obviously this is still his understanding, right? He's saying that, look, the Imam is masoom. The Imam, he has his knowledges from God. He is infallible. So whatever he does is exactly what God wants him to do. It's in line with the will of God. So whether his words, his actions, or his silence as well, is completely in line with what God wants. Right?
He does not speak out of his own free will. Neither does he act out of his own free will. He does it based on the fact that Allah has given him special knowledge, and he can use that knowledge to do what is right.
Yeah. Inshallah, we'll touch upon that of,
We have to, yes.
inshallah. But, this is one of his responsibilities. When you want to understand religion, simply picking up the Quran is not sufficient. You have to put these words and these actions of the Ahlul Bayt or even their silence beside the Quran to actually extract something.
And this is again in Hadith al-Thaqalain.
Yes.
The Quran and the Ahlul Bayt go hand in hand for us to actually gain insight or gain understanding of religion. Because the Quran was not revealed onto a stone or anything. It was revealed to a prophet who is the Ahlul Bayt.
Yeah. And then the last point is something that we need to think about. And perhaps there is a bit of truth to it, in which he says that maybe, right? And he mentions the word maybe at the start. The Imam did not have any other choice.
Okay.
Because as we remember that Yazid told his representative to kill Imam Husayn, to take his allegiance or kill him.
Walid in Medina.
Yes. And then even when he goes to Makkah for, I think the Hajj, if I'm not mistaken, again, the thing, what history tells us is that they wanted to shed his blood in Makkah again. So the Imam changes his thing and he leaves Makkah.
He leaves Makkah before the Hajj starts.
Yeah. So on the apparent level, maybe, right? Maybe, once again, underline the word maybe, highlight it, that the Imam did not have any other choice. You are sort of forcing him, and the Imam is helpless. So these are the reasons that this was sort of this was something that came onto Imam Husayn alayhi salam. So I think this is what I wanted to put across in terms of these things. Yeah.
So that if the Imam knows, okay, now we know that the Imam has special knowledge.
Yeah.
And we can assume over here that he may have known he is going to get martyred in the process. Why did he still go?
Okay. So before we delve into this issue of the knowledge, there are a few narrations that are here, right? Because the previous points was, for example, our understanding.
Our understanding.
But let's look at these words of the Imam himself.
As to why he had the uprising.
So the reason of Imam Husayn in his own words, basically.
Okay.
Right? Now, I'm going to try to read this in Arabic and then, a loose translation, and then, those, inshallah, we can extract something. So he says, Imam Husayn himself, right? He says, Ayyuhan nas, Kala Rasulullah. So he's saying, oh people, the Prophet has said, Man ra'a sultanan ja'iran mustahilan le hurumillah, naqisan le ahadillah, mukhalifan le sunnati Rasulullah, yamal fi ibadillah bil ithmi wal udwan, falam yughayyir alayhi bi fi'lan wala qawlan, kana haqqa alallahi an yudkhilahu madkhalahu. So basically he's saying, like, the Prophet has said that if someone sees a ruler, sultan, who is oppressing, who considers that what Allah is, he considers halal what is haram. So Allah considers certain things forbidden, but this person considers it halal, right? Naqisan li ahadillah. So a person who is breaking the covenant of God, right? Mukhalifan li sunnati Rasul. So this oppressive ruler is opposing the practices of the Holy Prophet, right? And at the same time, he is causing sins and enmity of God amongst the other servants. So now this is something happening on a very big level, okay? Then he says that this particular person who is seeing this, so now this is not about the ruler itself. He is saying somebody is seeing all this happening and he doesn't do anything through his actions or his words, right? Right? So now the person who's seeing all this oppression going on, he doesn't do anything with his action or his word. Befailin wala qawlin, kana haqqan alallah an yudkhilahu. So now it is sort of righteous, or now God is going to put him in his place. Basically, now God is going to put this person into the fire of hell. So because you are seeing all this happening and you're not doing anything about it, God, now it's the right of God that he puts you in the fire of hell.
So God has to deal with you now.
Yeah, now God has to deal. So now he's basically saying that, it is my responsibility basically to do all these things. I am seeing all this happening.
So just for the sake of our viewers, just let's remind ourselves again that up to the time of Imam Husayn, you had the first three caliphs.
Yeah.
Then you had Muawiyah.
Yeah.
Then you have Yazid. Each one of them brought brought new things to the religion and removed what was revealed to the Prophet. And this was done over time.
Yeah.
From the time of Imam Ali to the time of Imam Husayn. The Prophet passed away in what, 10 age?
Yeah.
Start of 11.
Okay.
And Imam Husayn died in 61 age. So it's around 50 years of corruption within religion. So with each one bringing their own bid'ah, it seemed the whole of religion had, and not only, these people weren't doing it on a personal level, let's make that clear. They had brought it into society now.
Okay, so now this narration continues.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now Imam is saying that somebody who's seeing this corruption in society, right, if they don't do anything, God's going to chuck them in the fire. Now he's speaking against these people. He's saying, Allah, وَإِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ قَدْ لَزَمُوا طَاعَةَ الشَّيْطَانِ. These people, right, they have clung, right, they have clung to the obedience of the shaitan. وَتَرَكُوا طَاعَةَ الرَّحْمَنِ. So they have obliged, they have clung to the obedience of the shaitan, and they have left the obedience of the one who's the Ta'atur Rahman, right? So, the Imams address God in different ways, but so he's saying that you've clung to the obedience of the shaitan and you've left the obedience of the Rahman, you've left the obedience of Allah. Wa adharu fasad. So now you have made fasad, corruption, right, completely apparent. This is not even behind closed doors anymore. This is completely wrong, right? And then there is a certain part of the narration that I want to leave for certain reasons, but the last part says, wa ahallu haram Allah wa harramu halalahu. So the haram of God, they have made it halal, and what God has forbidden, they have made it halal, basically. Now this is the most important thing. Wa ana, so the Imam is saying, wa ana ahaqqu man ghayyara. So he said before that somebody who doesn't do something about it, God's throwing them. He says, I am the most deserving, I am the most righteous or the most deserving of the one to bring about a change. So now the Imam, based on his position, based on what he had in society, he is saying that I am the most deserving of those to bring about a change in society. So because of that, he has decided to rise in his own words, not anyone's opinions. So this is something for us to think about. It's a very beautiful narration, and
if we see this uprising of Imam Husayn alayhi salam as well,
yeah,
ended up showing people the true face of the Umayyad dynasty, the
Yeah.
Umayyad Caliphate.
yeah,
And with that, it led to the downfall,
yeah,
and then the Abbasides came as well after that.
yeah,
But slowly, I feel that maybe the people became more alert towards the Imam
yeah,
and what the Imam is saying after the Qiyam of Ashura. That today, when we see religion,
yeah,
everything now, we always come back, and whatever people say, we always tend to take it back to the Hadith, because it has created this understanding that without the Ahlul Bayt,
yeah,
there's always going to be corruption. And this is what they proved. Those 50 years
yeah,
came to prove that without the Ahlul Bayt,
Mm.
religion's going to fall.
Yeah.
It's going to go down into the drains, unfortunately. And so after that, it caused a movement of people to flock towards Ahlul Bayt, even if some of them were insincere.
Yeah.
But still, it created a movement which has obviously reached us now, and we are able to study these in depth on a much more wider scale, I believe now.
Yeah. So now there is something to reflect, or something that complements all of this. And that is a certain line from the ziyarah, right? So in one of the ziyaras, right, of Imam Husayn, okay, or one of the ziyarats of the Ahlul, in the ziyarat of Imam Husayn, yes, sorry about that, it says, Ashhadu annaka qad halalta halal Allah.
You made the
You
halal.
made what Allah considers lawful. You made lawful what Allah considers lawful. So something has happened here,
Yeah.
and you are saying that you made lawful what was lawful.
So the lawful had become haram,
Yes.
and now you've made it back. You've brought it back to its
You
place
brought
of
it back to its place.
being halal.
Yeah. Wa haramta haram Allah. You forbade what was forbidden in the eyes of Allah, right? Wa akamta salah. Wa atayta zakah. Wa amarta bil ma'ruf. Wa nahayta anil munkar. Wa da'awta ila sabili bil hikmati wal mawizatil hasana. Right? So you established the prayer, you gave the zakat, you enjoined good, you forbade the evil, and you invited to the path of God through wisdom and mawizal hasana, right? Through giving a certain, forgive me, the Mu'izat Hasana needs something more specific, and I just it slipped my mind, but it's in line with what the Quran is saying, right? Now there is another narration here. Okay, so now see what the Prophet is saying. Sorry, what Imam Husayn is saying. He says, Ana, he's telling the people, right? Ana adukum ila kitabillah wa sunnati nabiyyihi. Fa inna sunnata kad umitat. Wa inna bid'ata kad uhyiyat. Yeah.
Interesting.
So the translation is like this. So Imam Husayn is saying, I invite you all to the book of God and the sunnah of his Prophet. For verily, the sunnah, right? So the sunnah of Prophet was killed or was destroyed, right? And verily innovations have been brought to life.
Brought to life. So religion was replaced by innovations.
Yeah.
Which brings us to an important point I actually want to put. When we put into contemporary times, I find, just for the sake,
Yeah.
when we in contemporary times as well, I believe that some people replace religion with superstitions
Yeah.
and religion with cultural innovations. And I think maybe from this we need to be a bit more alert that when we are bringing rulings into, or when we advise other people on religious rulings, just be careful not to bring your own superstitions into it. I find this quite a bit. I find this happening quite a bit. And yes, be careful.
Yeah. So
let's go back to. Are we done with the?
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think these were the narrations. You know, there are many more narrations here, but
Oh,
even
this is
if
a very big book.
yeah, even if we reflect on this and try to do something that applies and try to apply it to our lives, then definitely we can learn a bit. But obviously, one thing that sort of in my limited research I've seen is that when we want to understand, you know, religion as a whole, we always say fine that the Quran has to interpret the Hadith. But then I remember in one of my lessons when we were studying Sheikh Ansari's book Faraj al-Usul, which is a book on Islamic jurisprudence, and in the hawza it's famously known as Rasail. So in that he brings another narration in which one of the Imam tells us that even the Hadiths interpret other Hadiths. So just by picking on one Hadith, you might not get the whole picture. Quran, Hadith, and you need to bring other narrations alongside them to sort of, it's like they're all pieces of one jigsaw puzzle. You bring all the pieces together to actually see what's going on. So yeah, that was, I think we can conclude this point and, go on to the next part.
Okay, so let's go to the next part, which we mentioned. If the Imam knew he's going to be martyred,
Yeah.
why go?
Okay, so now this is, it's a deep discussion, and I'll try what I can. And obviously in this book, he brings the opinions of Allama Majlisi and Allama Tabatabai, right? And so, this is something, if it's something is not clear, or rather if you feel that I make a mistake, then, please post it in the comments, and, inshallah, we'll try to see if the comment is right. So basically, Allama Tabatabai and Allama Majlisi are telling us that Imam Husayn, or even the Imams, they have two forms of knowledge. One is the apparent.
Yes, that we all have.
That we all share, all normal
have
human beings possess. So we gain information through our five senses. Our mind processes it, we contemplate, and we reach a conclusion.
Or even our intellects, whatever intellects that we get through normal reading and.
Yeah. Alongside that, the Imams, alongside this, we have a certain a divine form of knowledge which is given to them directly from God, right? Now, obviously, all of us, whether you are an Imam or a person is all of us, in and of ourselves are empty, right? God has all the knowledge himself. He is, Alim and Hayy and Qadir. He gives the knowledge.
He gives the knowledge.
So whatever happens through his permission.
So it's not that Imam has that knowledge from himself.
Yeah.
This divine knowledge is granted by Allah. He's not independent in that knowledge. He's dependent on Allah in that knowledge.
Yeah. So and this is not limited to the prophets. Oh, yes, we have to clarify that Wahi, that becomes a divine book, right, is exclusive to the prophets. But there are other forms of knowledge, for example, Ilham, based upon, for example, if you look at the Quran, right, where Allah says that we inspired the mother of Musa. Or for example, we see that Maryam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, she sees the angel, right? Or there are other verses as well in which Allah says, He says that God talks to the Bashar right, in certain ways. So from this we can understand that other than wahi, right, there are other forms of knowledge that is given. Now, when we look at the authentic narrations, the Imams based on this, so it's not gulu as such. Allah gives them a certain form of knowledge, right? Now, this could be of different forms, right? So, for example, the Imam can see the reality of a human being, right? For example, we might have heard that the Imam tells the companion, or he shows the companion that, look, these people are pigs and dogs.
But that's showing them their face in barzakh.
Yeah, so that's not something that you gain through your five senses.
It is al-mahul. It comes through, yes, it's a divine,
Yeah.
granted.
It's something by the permission of Allah, right? Or for example, it says that the angels spoke to all the Imams, including Sayyidah Fatima as well. So she was not an Imam, but she had this position. She was Muhaddatha. She spoke to the angels, right?
Angels spoke to her.
Yes, sorry. The angels spoke to her. This applies to the Imams as well. Now, when we go forward, another one that they have access to is the Lahul Mahfuz, right? In the Lahul Mahfuz, right, decisions of Allah that are final based on His wisdom are in that.
Yes.
So now, if you remember from the theological discussions, you have the qadr of God and the qaza. So the qadr is not finalized, right? Allah, let's say for example, dictates that I have been given 60 years in this world. It's not finalized, and He'll give me 60 years. And now that I go into this world, let's say I see certain narrations, for example, Silatul Rahim, or for example, giving Sadqa, right? If you do this, your life will increase. If you do this, your life will decrease. So based on my actions, right, I do this, I sin, for example, and let's say in accordance to that 60, plus or minus, I get 5 on top, right? So now I have reached 65, and Allah's final decision is 65. So when that happens, once His final decision is made in the qaza, it cannot change.
And that's in the Lawh Mahfuz.
Yeah, so some of these final decisions, not everything, certain final decisions are in the Lawh Mahfuz, right? So what Allama Tabatabai is saying is that this thing of the Shahada of the Imam was based on his knowledge of the Lawhul Mahfuz. Because it was finalized, right, he's saying that the Imam really doesn't have any free will to change that decision.
He's basically going to act based on his
apparent knowledge,
yeah, not on what Allah has decreed for him.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he submits to the will of Allah,
Yeah.
completely, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. His personal aspirations and desires do not have any interference in it.
Yeah. So the other thing, so now somebody will say, well, is the Imam committing suicide?
Not.
No. The fact that that decision has already been made by God, in that aspect, the Imam himself doesn't have the freedom. Because he doesn't have the freedom, he doesn't have any responsibility to try to change what God has already decided. Yes? Whatever is in his power, the apparent knowledge, right? Whatever is in his power, what he sees in front of him, the Imam acts on that. So, for example, the Imam is in Makkah, he gets news from his people who are telling him, his informants, that your blood is going to be shed. Not from completely, not the angels or whatever. He's seeing that, yes, he uses his intellect, which is perfect, to outsmart his enemies or guide the servants of God. But based on what's around him, right, he sort of moves on.
Yeah, based on the apparent knowledge he had, he chose to move out from Mecca to avoid being killed there.
Yeah. But even here, we have to remember that even the fact that the Imam is responding to different things, this again is a form of guidance from God. So even the apparent knowledge is still being done with the permission from God, right? So now somebody would say, well, is the Imam being forced or not? No, you have to actually understand the discussion of free will and predestination.
And that's a very lengthy discussion, and that requires, if just for our viewers who are interested in a bit of this discussion, check out the book Theological Instructions by Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi. You might be able to get some brief discussion Qadha and Qadr, because it is discussed in theology, in most of the theology books discussing it. So if you want a bit of insight into this, have a look at that book.
Yeah, so we can sort of bring this there, that the Imam himself is not 100% free. At the same time, God is not forcing him into his own martyrdom, right? So based on Allah willed that Imam Husayn has free will, and based on this free will, Imam Husayn is he's doing his own duties.
He's acting according to what Allah has assigned him to do.
Yeah, and obviously Imam Husayn knows well, rather, let me rephrase that. The reason why God is giving them this knowledge, now this is again, now Allama Tabatabai is giving his reasoning, his own understanding again. Is like maybe God is testing Imam Husayn by telling him that you are going to be martyred, your family, your brother Hazrat Abbas, your son Ali Akbar, or the little child Abdullah Razi, as one of the accounts says, is going to be murdered. This is a test for you.
And you have to pass it.
Yeah, you are. Now we have to understand, right? The higher, the closer you are to God, the bigger your position, the more capacity, and therefore the rule that God says in the Quran that we will test you. Here, the test for the Imam is higher compared to the rest of us. So I think this is how we can conclude it, that the more higher you are to God, the more closer you are to God, Allah will test you accordingly to see your level of submission. So whether you are, well, obviously we are tested, but just because you are Ahlul Bayt, you are Wali of God, God isn't going to leave you. So this thing that is from the Quran of ibtila, Prophet Ibrahim was tested, our Prophet was tested. He's, that doesn't, so Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, they're no exceptions. Everyone is going to be tested.
And his test was one of the most difficult ones history has ever recorded.
Yep.
And he was the most submissive to Allah in this test, to the extent that on his last breath, his face shone so bright that those who came to kill him could not do it because they were mesmerized by his bright face. Yani in every second that whatever he went through, however he went through it, he was fully submissive to the command and the will of Allah. And with that, can we conclude?
Yeah, we can conclude.
And thank you so much for enlightening us on this. And for our dear viewers, I hope you have benefited from this series. And if you have, we would actually really appreciate it if you can hit the subscribe button and also press the bell notification so you're notified every time we release a video. And thank you so much for joining us on Faraj Podcast.